In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, the Meridian Alliance faced extinction. Their once mighty civilization, spanning thousands of star systems, had been reduced to a mere handful of fortress worlds. The Void Collective, a mysterious force of biomechanical entities, had emerged from the dark space between galaxies, consuming everything in their path. Not through conventional warfare, but through something far more insidious. They corrupted and transformed entire planetary populations into extensions of their hive mind. Commander Lyra Val stood at the observation deck of the Meridian Command Station, her crystalline skin reflecting the distant starlight. As the last surviving member of the High Command, she carried the burden of billions of lives on her shoulders. The latest reports showed that another defense platform had fallen silent, another world lost to the creeping darkness of the Void Collective. Commander, her aide, Tarn, approached with a data crystal in his four-fingered hand. Our deep space sensors have detected something unusual. His bioluminescent patterns pulsed with anxiety, a trait common among the Arctians. We found a species that seems immune to the Void's corruption. Lyra's attention snapped to the holographic display as it materialized before them. The images showed a relatively small spiral galaxy, unremarkable except for one crucial detail. A single world, populated by beings who had achieved spaceflight but hadn't yet ventured far beyond their solar system. Humans, Tarn explained, his voice carrying a mix of hope and skepticism. They'd been fighting their own battles, completely unaware of the greater conflicts in the universe. But their neural patterns, they're unlike anything we've ever seen. The data scrolled before Lyra's eyes. Humans possessed an unprecedented level of neural plasticity, their minds capable of forming new connections and adapting to changes at a rate that defied conventional understanding. More importantly, every attempt by their long-range probes to simulate void corruption on human neural patterns had failed spectacularly. They're chaotic, Lyra observed, studying the readings. Their thoughts, their societies, their very evolution. It's all driven by constant change and adaptation. The Void can't establish a foothold because there's no pattern to corrupt, no standard to override. But it wasn't just their mental resilience that caught her attention. The humans had developed technology along paths that no other species had considered. While the rest of the galaxy's civilizations had pursued perfect efficiency and predictable outcomes, humans embraced randomness, redundancy, and sometimes even deliberate inefficiency as safety measures. They're warriors too, Tarn added, displaying footage of human conflicts. They've spent millennia fighting among themselves, developing strategies and technologies that would be considered primitive by our standards, yet. He paused, his patterns flickering with excitement. They've achieved results that even our most advanced combat systems couldn't replicate. Lyra watched as humans demonstrated their capacity for warfare. Unlike the precision strikes favored by the Alliance or the overwhelming force of the Void Collective, humans fought with a mix of strategy and improvisation that bordered on artistic chaos. They adapted their tactics mid-battle, used their environment in unexpected ways, and most importantly, they never gave up. How many of them are there? Lyra asked, her mind already calculating possibilities. Billions, Tarn replied, all confined to a single planet, with small outposts across their solar system. They've survived multiple extinction-level events, wars that should have destroyed them, and disasters that would have broken any other civilization. They just keep going. The decision crystallized in Lyra's mind. The Alliance had spent centuries fighting the Void Collective with logic, with precision, with all the advanced technology they could muster. Perhaps it was time for a different approach. Perhaps chaos was the answer to chaos. Prepare a first contact team, she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of command. But not our usual diplomatic corps. I want our best warriors, our most adaptable minds. We're not going to approach them as superior beings offering guidance. We're going to approach them as equals seeking allies. Commander, Tarn's patterns pulsed with concern. The Council protocols for first contact. The Council is gone, Lyra cut him off, her tone sharp but not unkind. "We're facing extinction, Tarn. The old rules, the carefully crafted protocols, they haven't saved us. These humans, they've spent their entire history learning to survive against impossible odds. That's exactly what we need right now." As she gave the orders that would set their desperate plan in motion, Lyra felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Not the calculated probability of success she was trained to rely on, but real, chaotic, human-style hope. The kind that persisted even when logic said otherwise. The Void Collective had spread across the galaxy like a perfect virus, corrupting and converting everything in its path. But they had never encountered humanity's organized chaos, their beautiful imperfection. Perhaps that was exactly what the universe needed: not perfect soldiers fighting a perfect enemy, but warriors who thrived in chaos and turned unpredictability into an art form. As the first contact team prepared for their mission, Lyra couldn't help but wonder how these humans would react to learning they weren't alone in the universe. More importantly, how would they respond to discovering they might be the galaxy's last hope? The answer would determine not just humanity's fate, but the survival of all sentient life as they knew it. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force had seen her share of strange situations, but nothing quite prepared her for the sight of crystalline aliens materializing in the United Nations Security Council chamber. The Meridian Alliance's first contact team arrived with a desperate plea and mind-bending technology, but it was their vulnerability that caught humanity's attention. These advanced beings weren't here to conquer or enlighten. They were here to survive. 3 months later, Sarah found herself aboard the Meridian flagship, watching as human military advisors introduced concepts that seemed obvious to her but revolutionary to their alien allies. The massive holographic display showed the Void Collective's latest advance, their biomechanical ships moving in perfect, predictable patterns. "That's your problem right there," Sarah pointed out, her finger tracing the enemy formation. "They're too perfect. Every move is optimized, every strategy calculated to mathematical precision, and that makes them vulnerable." Commander Lyra Val, now a familiar presence, tilted her head in confusion. Her crystalline features caught the starlight as she considered Sarah's words. "Perfection is vulnerability. Our tactical computers cannot process this paradox." Sarah smiled, remembering her grandfather's lessons about guerrilla warfare. The most perfect system is also the most brittle. It can't adapt to what it doesn't understand. "Show me your combat simulator." The holographic display shifted, showing a strategic overview of a recent battle where the Alliance lost 3 star systems in perfectly calculated succession. Sarah studied the replay, noting how the Void Collective's ships moved with unwavering efficiency. "Load this scenario," she commanded, "but this time, we're going to do something they'll never expect. We're going to make mistakes, intentional ones." The alien crew watched in bewilderment as Sarah began implementing what she called calculated chaos. Instead of meeting the Void Collective's perfect formations with equally ordered counterformations, she scattered Alliance ships in seemingly random patterns. Some ships deliberately presented their weakest shields, baiting the enemy into obvious attacks that led them into carefully planned crossfires. In human military history, Sarah explained as she worked, we learned that sometimes the best way to win isn't to be stronger or more efficient. It's to be unpredictable, to embrace chaos as a strategy. The simulation played out differently this time. The Void Collective's forces, programmed to respond to logical patterns, found their perfect formations broken up as they tried to adapt to the apparently erratic human tactics. Where they expected shields, they found weapons. Where they predicted retreat, they met advance. "Impossible," Tarn whispered, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. The simulation shows a 47% reduction in casualties using these chaotic tactics. But Sarah wasn't finished. She pulled up data on human history, showing examples of how smaller, less advanced forces had overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Winter War, the guerrilla campaigns that had shaped Earth's history. each demonstrating how apparent weakness could become strength. "We're going to teach your crews to think like guerrilla fighters," Sarah announced. "Every ship captain will have authority to make independent decisions. We'll create deliberate gaps in our formations, gaps that look like weaknesses but are actually traps. The void wants patterns. We'll give them patterns that lead nowhere and chaos that strikes everywhere." Commander Lyra watched as Sarah laid out her plans, her crystalline features reflecting the shifting tactical displays. "Your species," she observed, "you've turned warfare into an art form. Not through perfection, but through its opposite." "We had to," Sarah replied, thinking of humanity's long history of conflict and survival. On Earth, every time someone developed the perfect military strategy, someone else found a way to break it. We learned that the only unbeatable strategy is to never be predictable. The next few weeks saw human military advisors spread throughout the Alliance fleet. They taught alien crews concepts that had been fundamental to human warfare for centuries: the importance of individual initiative, the value of deception, the power of controlled chaos. The rigid command structures that had served the Alliance for millennia began to evolve, becoming more fluid, more adaptive. Most importantly, they introduced something the Alliance had never considered: the concept of asymmetric warfare. Instead of trying to match the Void Collective's strength, they would turn that very strength into a weakness. Every perfect pattern would become a potential trap, every predictable response an opportunity for ambush. "Your civilization," Lyra commented to Sarah one evening as they watched Alliance crews practicing their new tactics, "it should have destroyed itself centuries ago. Your history is filled with conflicts that should have ended you. Yet somehow, these very conflicts made you stronger." Sarah nodded, understanding the paradox. "That's humanity's secret. We don't just survive our trials, we learn from them. Every war, every disaster, every near-extinction event taught us something new. We're not perfect, and that's our greatest strength." As if to prove her point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. The Void Collective had been detected on the edge of the system, their ships moving in their characteristic perfect formations. But this time, instead of dread, Sarah felt a surge of anticipation. The Alliance fleet was ready to demonstrate its new tactics, to show the galaxy what happened when you combined advanced technology with human ingenuity. "All ships," Lyra commanded, her voice carrying across the fleet, "implement Operation Chaos. Remember your training. Today, we show the Void that perfection isn't power. Adaptation is." As the fleet moved into position, Sarah watched their formations, or rather, their apparent lack of formation. To the Void Collective's perfect algorithms, it would look like disorder, like weakness. They would never understand that this chaos was deliberate, that each seemingly random movement was part of a larger, more unpredictable strategy. The battle that followed would change the nature of warfare in the galaxy forever. Dr. Maya Patel stood before the Combined Scientific Council of the Meridian Alliance, her holographic presentation showing the most revolutionary breakthrough in the war against the Void Collective. Behind her, neural patterns danced across the display, human brainwaves interacting with artificial intelligence in ways that defied conventional understanding. "The Void Collective succeeds because it imposes perfect order," Maya explained, her dark eyes intense with purpose. "It finds patterns in organic minds and overwrites them with its own. But human consciousness," she gestured to the chaotic display of neural activity behind her, "human consciousness is anything but orderly." The alien scientists watched in fascination as Maya demonstrated her team's discovery. Where other species' neural patterns followed predictable pathways, human thoughts created ever-changing networks of connections. Dreams, intuition, creativity. These weren't bugs in human consciousness, they were features that made it impossible for the Void to establish control. Commander Lyra Val, who had been working closely with the humans since first contact, leaned forward in her crystalline form. "You're suggesting we weaponize this chaos." "Better," Maya smiled, pressing a control that transformed the display. We're suggesting we teach your AI systems to think like us, to dream, to imagine, to create neural networks that evolve in ways even we can't predict. The revelation stunned the Council. For millennia, the Alliance had developed AI systems based on logic and order, making them vulnerable to the Void's corruption. Human AI development had taken a different path, embracing uncertainty, building in randomness, and most importantly, learning to work with organic minds rather than trying to perfect them. Captain Sarah Chen, who had been instrumental in implementing human military tactics, stepped forward. We've already begun testing the integration of these systems with our new battle strategies. The results are impressive. The display shifted to show combat footage from recent engagements. Alliance ships, now equipped with human-designed AI cores, moved with an unpredictability that confused and frustrated Void forces. But it wasn't just chaos. It was orchestrated improvisation. Millions of decisions being made in microseconds by AIs that thought with human-like creativity. The key breakthrough, Maya continued, came when we stopped trying to make perfect AIs and started teaching them to embrace imperfection. We created systems that could not only think, but doubt, question, and even make intuitive leaps. She brought up another display, showing the neural interface that allowed human operators to directly connect with these new AI systems. This is the neural bridge. It doesn't just link minds with machines. It creates something entirely new. The hybrid consciousness that combines human creativity with AI processing power. The council chamber erupted in discussion, crystalline forms reflecting light as the alien scientists debated among themselves. This wasn't just a new weapon. It was a fundamental shift in how sentient beings could interact with technology. Dr. Kara Novak, Maya's research partner, stepped up to demonstrate. She connected to one of the new AI cores through the neural bridge, and the displays exploded with activity. The alien scientists watched in awe as human and machine consciousness merged, creating patterns that were neither purely organic nor artificial. The Void Collective can't corrupt these systems, Kara explained, her voice carrying the slight echo of AI enhancement, because they're never the same from one moment to the next. They evolve, adapt, and change faster than the Void can analyze them. Commander Lyra's crystalline form pulsed with understanding. You haven't just created a defense against the Void. You've created a new form of life. Maya nodded. Every species in the Alliance has been trying to perfect their technology, to make it more orderly, more predictable. We took the opposite approach. We taught our machines to embrace chaos, to think laterally, to dream. The implications were staggering. Ships equipped with these new hybrid systems could adapt their tactics in real time, developing strategies that neither human nor AI alone could conceive. More importantly, they were completely immune to the Void's attempts at corruption. But there's a catch, Maya warned, her expression serious. These systems require human operators. Our neural plasticity, our ability to form new mental pathways. It's what makes the whole thing work. We'll need to train thousands of human pilots, engineers, and controllers. Sarah stepped forward again. We've already begun recruitment on Earth. When people learned about the threat of the Void Collective, volunteers came forward by the millions. Humanity has spent its entire history preparing for a moment like this. We just didn't know it. The display behind them showed the first wave of human volunteers training with the neural bridge systems. Each person brought their own unique mental patterns, their own way of thinking, making each hybrid system as individual as its operator. The Void Collective believes it represents the perfect fusion of organic and artificial life, Maya concluded. But perfection is stagnation. We're offering something different, a partnership between human and machine that celebrates imperfection, that thrives on diversity and change. As the Council debated the implications, alerts suddenly blared throughout the station. The Void Collective had launched a major offensive, targeting multiple Alliance systems simultaneously. But this time, the Alliance was ready. Launch the hybrid ships, Commander Lyra ordered, her voice carrying newfound confidence. Let's show the Void what real evolution looks like. Across the Alliance fleet, human operators connected to their AI partners, creating thousands of unique hybrid consciousnesses. Each one was different, unpredictable, impossible to corrupt. The perfect order of the Void Collective was about to meet its antithesis: human chaos amplified by artificial intelligence. The true test of humanity's greatest innovation was about to begin. The Void Collective's response to humanity's innovations was devastating in its intensity. They launched what became known as the Omega Protocol, a massive assault that targeted not just military installations, but the very fabric of civilized space. Thousands of their biomechanical ships emerged from dark space, each one carrying a new strain of corruption that adapted to the Alliance's defenses. Admiral Sarah Chen, recently promoted to lead the combined fleet, watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Void had learned from their defeats, evolving their perfect patterns into something more dangerous, controlled chaos of their own. "They're mimicking our tactics," she muttered, watching as enemy ships moved in formations that seemed almost human in their unpredictability. The Void had done what they did best: observed, analyzed, and adapted. The Neural Network Command Center was a storm of activity. Dr. Maya Patel's hybrid systems were working overtime, their human operators pushing both themselves and their AI partners to the limit. But even these revolutionary systems were struggling to keep up with the Void's enhanced assault. "We've lost contact with the Centauri defense grid," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his neural interface glowing as he processed vast streams of battlefield data. "They've developed some kind of adaptive jamming field. It's blocking our quantum communications." The situation grew worse by the hour. The Void's new offensive wasn't just powerful, it was smart. They targeted communication hubs, isolated fleet elements, and systematically dismantled the Alliance's carefully constructed defense networks. It was as if they had taken humanity's lessons in warfare and turned them back against their teachers. Commander Lyra Val's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained anxiety as she joined Sarah at the tactical display. "They're pushing us back on all fronts. Even the hybrid ships can't maintain coordination without the quantum network. We're fighting blind." Sarah studied the battle plot, her mind racing. The Void had adapted to their tactics, learned to jam their communications, and was now threatening to tear the Alliance apart system by system. But something about the attack pattern nagged at her military instincts. "They're not just mimicking our tactics," she realized suddenly. "They're perfecting them, making them more efficient, more predictable." A smile slowly spread across her face. "And that's their mistake." She turned to Maya, who was working frantically to restore communications through the jamming. "Doctor, what happens if we deliberately desynchronize the neural network? Not just random chaos, but controlled discord." Maya's eyes widened as she grasped the concept. "You want to create a symphony of chaos, each hybrid ship operating on its own unique frequency, but all part of a larger pattern that only makes sense to human intuition." "Exactly," Sarah nodded. "The Void thinks they've mastered our chaos, but they're still trying to perfect it. They can't help themselves. It's their nature. So let's give them something they can't perfect because it's fundamentally imperfect." The plan was dangerous, perhaps suicidal. They would have to temporarily shut down the quantum network entirely, leaving each ship to operate independently. But each human operator, connected to their AI through the neural bridge, would be following their own instincts while unconsciously maintaining harmony with the whole, like jazz musicians improvising together. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen." Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "Execute Operation Deadbeat. Shut down quantum sync and switch to autonomous mode. Trust your training. Trust your instincts. And most importantly, trust your human nature." Across the battlefield, Alliance ships began moving in ways that defied conventional tactical analysis. Each vessel followed its own rhythm, its own pattern, guided by the unique partnership between human operator and AI. There was no central coordination, no perfect strategy, just thousands of individual decisions creating a tapestry of controlled chaos that the Void couldn't predict or counter. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Void's forces, which had adapted to counter the Alliance's previous tactics, found themselves unable to establish any coherent response. Their attempts to analyze and perfect these new patterns failed because there were no patterns, only the indefinable human quality of intuitive cooperation. But victory was far from assured. The Void's numbers were overwhelming, and their ships were still individually superior to most Alliance vessels. As the battle raged on, more Alliance ships fell, their crews fighting to the last moment. The human operators were pushing themselves to their limits, many approaching dangerous levels of neural fatigue. "We're hurting them," Lyra observed, watching as another Void formation broke apart under the Alliance's unpredictable assault. "But they're still too strong. We need something more." Sarah watched as a group of hybrid ships executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible without coordination, yet somehow flowed together perfectly. It reminded her of something she'd seen back on Earth, a murmuration of starlings, thousands of birds moving as one without any central control. "Maya," she called out, "what if we took this further? Not just independent ships moving in harmony, but a true emergence of collective consciousness, not forced like the Void, but voluntary, like a dance." Maya finished her thought, already working on her console. "We could modify the neural bridge to allow for passive empathic connection. Not control, not coordination, but something more subtle, a sharing of intention." The Void Collective pressed their attack, sensing the Alliance's vulnerability. But as they did, something unprecedented began to take shape. The human operators, connected through the modified neural bridge, began to feel each other's presence. Not thoughts, not commands, but a deep, intuitive sense of shared purpose. What emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A battle ballet of staggering complexity, with thousands of ships moving in concert yet completely independently. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't efficient, but it was beautiful in its organic complexity. The Void's forces, for the first time, showed signs of genuine confusion. Their perfect patterns shattered against an enemy they couldn't understand, couldn't predict, and most importantly, couldn't perfect. But even as the tide began to turn, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Void Collective would adapt again, would find new ways to fight. The real question was whether the Alliance could stay one step ahead in this deadly dance of evolution. As she watched her forces execute maneuvers that defied both logic and physics, Sarah remembered an old Earth saying, "The perfect is the enemy of the good." The Void's quest for perfection had made them strong, but humanity's embrace of imperfection might just prove stronger. The Meridian Alliance's command center hummed with tension as Admiral Sarah Chen and Commander Lyra Val studied the latest intelligence reports. The Void Collective had withdrawn their forces following their failed assault, but this wasn't surrender, it was preparation. Their biomechanical ships had gathered at the edge of known space, combining into something unprecedented in scale. "They're building a nexus," Maya announced, her neural interface projecting data streams across the holographic display. Every ship, every corrupted world, they're linking them all into a single consciousness. They're trying to achieve perfect unity. The scope of the threat was staggering. The Void Collective was attempting to create a superintelligence that would encompass their entire fleet, every corrupted world, and every assimilated being. It would be the ultimate expression of their drive for perfection, a single unified mind of unimaginable power. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Hours, maybe less," Maya replied. "Once the Nexus achieves full synchronization, it will be able to coordinate their entire force with perfect efficiency. Our advantage of creative chaos won't be enough against that level of computational power." Lyra's crystalline form pulsed with concern. "Can we strike before they complete the merger?" Sarah shook her head. "They'd expect that. This is their endgame. They've probably planned for every conventional attack we could launch. She turned to Maya. But what if we gave them exactly what they want? Perfect unity. Just not the kind they're expecting. Understanding dawned in Maya's eyes. You want to use the neural bridge technology, but on a scale we've never attempted. Every human operator, every AI system, every Alliance ship and station, all connected through the modified neural bridge. Sarah explained. Not forced into unity like the Void, but joined in voluntary cooperation. A network of minds, each maintaining their individuality while working in harmony. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. They would need to link thousands of human operators, each connected to their hybrid AI systems, into a vast neural network. But unlike the Void's perfect synchronization, this would be a chorus of distinct voices, a symphony of controlled chaos. It's never been done at this scale, Maya warned. The neural load could be devastating. We'd be asking every human operator to open their minds not just to their AI partners, but to each other. The psychological stress alone. Send the call, Sarah commanded. Let every operator know the stakes and the risks, but make it clear, this is voluntary. We do this together, or not at all. The response from the human operators was immediate and overwhelming. They had seen their homes, their families, their very way of life threatened by the Void's relentless advance. Now they had a chance to end it, even at great personal risk. As the Void Nexus neared completion, the Alliance began their own transformation. Through the neural bridge, thousands of human minds joined in a vast network of consciousness. Each operator maintained their individuality, their unique perspective, but now they could feel the presence of countless others, a sea of human thought and emotion. The sensation was overwhelming at first. Unlike the Void's cold perfection, this was a storm of feelings, memories, and instincts. But slowly, something beautiful emerged from the chaos. The human operators began to find their rhythm, their individual songs merging into a greater harmony. All forces, prepare for final engagement, Sarah broadcast, her own mind now part of the vast network. She could feel every operator, every AI, all working together in an unprecedented fusion of organic and artificial intelligence. The Void Nexus, now fully formed, launched its assault. Their ships moved with perfect coordination, each action calculated to mathematical precision. But they faced something they couldn't calculate, a force that embraced imperfection as strength. The battle that followed defied conventional description. Alliance ships moved in patterns that seemed random yet possessed a deep organic logic. Each human operator contributed their unique perspective, their individual creativity, to a greater whole. The AIs processed these insights at incredible speed, turning intuition into action. Where the Void sought to impose order, the Alliance responded with beautiful chaos. Where the Nexus calculated perfect solutions, they encountered problems that defied logical analysis. The human capacity for lateral thinking, for emotional response, for intuitive leaps of logic, proved impossible for even their vast intelligence to counter. They can't adapt, Maya observed, her mind linked to the network. They've committed everything to perfect unity. They've lost the ability to evolve. The Void Nexus, faced with an enemy it couldn't predict or control, began to show signs of strain. Its perfect patterns became rigid, brittle. The more it tried to optimize its responses, the more vulnerable it became to the Alliance's fluid, adaptive strategies. Sarah felt the moment approaching, the critical point where order and chaos would decide the fate of the galaxy. Through the neural network, she shared not just tactical data, but something more important: hope. Hope that imperfection could triumph over perfection, that diversity could overcome uniformity. Now, she commanded, and the entire Alliance fleet moved as one. Not in perfect synchronization, but in harmonious chaos. Each ship, each operator, each AI contributing their unique part to a symphony of destruction that tore through the Void's defenses. The Nexus, committed to its path of perfect unity, couldn't adapt fast enough. Its vast intelligence, bound by its own rules of perfection, began to fragment under the assault of unpredictable creative chaos. The corruption that had spread across the galaxy began to unravel. As the Void Collective's grand experiment in perfection collapsed, the liberated worlds began to emerge from their corruption. The price had been high. Countless lives lost, worlds scared, and many human operators would bear the psychological marks of their neural link forever. But they had proved something profound, that the greatest strength lies not in perfect unity, but in the celebration of difference. In the aftermath, as the Alliance began the long process of rebuilding, Commander Lyra Val found Sarah standing at her familiar spot on the observation deck. "Your species," she said, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight. "You've changed everything. Not just how we fight, but how we think about consciousness itself." Sarah smiled, watching the hybrid ships patrol the starlit void. "We just showed the galaxy what humanity has always known, that perfection isn't the goal. It's our flaws, our chaos, our endless drive to adapt and change that makes us strong." The neural bridge technology would change civilization forever, not as a weapon of war, but as a tool for understanding. Humans had shown the galaxy that true unity doesn't require perfect synchronization. It thrives on diversity, on the beautiful chaos of individual minds working together by choice. As new stars flickered to life in the distance, Sarah thought about the future they had won. The Void Collective had sought to perfect the galaxy, to remake it in their image of unified order. Instead, humanity had shown them a different path, one where imperfection wasn't a flaw to be corrected, but a strength to be celebrated. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.